Hey there, and welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely pumped you're tuning in today because we're going to be tackling a mystery that, well, it defies logic. It defies medical science. And honestly, it defies history itself. Now, I want you to start off by taking a real deep breath and just picture the distant past in full detail. Imagine the heavy, echoing tick-tock of an antique brass pocket watch just ticking away in extreme slow motion. Really try to feel the imaginary weight of that cold metal right in your hand. Think about time itself, the sheer unrelenting march of it. As modern folks, we kind of tend to view the past as something entirely disconnected from us, right? Like it's locked away in dusty archives, or black and white film reels, or behind glass in museums. We think of a century as just this purely abstract concept. But what if I told you there are living, breathing human beings who have physically embodied an entire century of that time? People who have carried 100 years of human history inside a single beating heart. So let's just pick a random year right out of the history books. Let's say 1912. Think about the massive historical weight of that specific year in full detail. 1912 was the year the unsinkable Titanic actually sank to the freezing bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. It's also the exact same year New Mexico officially became a U.S. state, finally shedding its wild frontier status. When we hear dates like 1912, it feels like ancient textbook history, doesn't it? It feels like an era trapped entirely in our minds as faded photographs of men in bowler hats, women in heavy dresses, and horse-drawn carriages navigating these busy, dusty cobblestone streets. It's just a completely different universe. But for a highly select, incredibly rare few individuals, 1912 wasn't ancient history at all. No, for them, that distant universe was literally just their childhood. Imagine the profound juxtaposition of a lifespan like that. Just imagine experiencing the slow, clattering rhythm of those horse-drawn carriages, the absolute stillness of those faded sepia-toned photographs, and then living long enough to see the explosive, relentless acceleration of our modern world. We are talking about a human mind surviving to witness the transition from candlelight to high-definition reality, from quiet dirt roads to flashing traffic lights and high-speed bullet trains literally tearing across entire continents. From sending handwritten letters that took weeks to arrive, to watching billions of people instantly swiping away on glowing smartphones. The sheer velocity of change between the era they were born into and the era they eventually left is dizzying. Honestly, it's almost too massive to even comprehend. But let's pause here. I want to zero in on a very specific number, 116. This is where the abstract concept of time becomes deeply, deeply personal and incredibly real. Because this number represents a man named Giromon Kamuta. And he didn't just casually live a long time. He lived for an astounding 116 years and 54 days. Now, I want you to really think about the sheer magnitude of that in full detail. Every single one of those days counts. It is a staggering amount of time for a human heart to just keep beating without a single pause. Think about it. He lived through 2 world wars, the invention of the airplane, the moon landing, and the dawn of the internet, all in one continuous, unbroken lifetime. Incredible. And then, we have João Marinho Neto, who reached 113 years old. Really think about the profound, heavy reality behind living to 113. This isn't just about blowing out a ton of candles on a birthday cake or, getting a congratulatory letter from the government. We're talking about the heart-wrenching psychological toll and the mind-bending anomaly of a man actually outliving his own children, and then outliving his grandchildren. He outlived his entire original social circle, and he outlived the very century in which he was born. The emotional resilience required to carry that much loss and still wake up every single day with a willingness to keep going, well, that's just as staggering as the physical reality of his age. Okay, so let's dive into the science of this, because understanding what biologists call the supercentenarian barrier is absolutely crucial here. Statistically speaking, the human body has a hard ceiling. It is essentially programmed to stop. While a few women have famously crossed the 117-year mark, biologists will tell you that the male body rarely, if ever, makes it past 110. It's like a biological wall built by cellular degradation, cardiovascular limits, and deep genetic programming. Yet, every few decades, a medical anomaly emerges. A man like Kimura or Nato completely shatters the fundamental rules of human biology and literally walks right past that 110-year barrier as if it isn't even there. Which naturally brings us to the ultimate billion-dollar question. And literally, the scientific community has spent billions of dollars and decades of exhausting research trying to decode the blood, the tissue, and the cells of these anomalies in full detail. We desperately want to know, how do they do it? Like, is there some hidden, elusive gene hiding deep in their DNA? Is it a rare genetic mutation that acts like some sort of invisible armor against the wear and tear of aging? Or is the truth behind their astonishing survival something completely different? Something frustratingly simple that just can't be seen under a high-powered microscope? Well, this exact mystery led researchers straight to what we now call the blue zones. For years, scientists and demographers have been swarming the globe's longevity hotspots, places like the lush, sun-drenched, mountainous coastlines of Sardinia, Italy, and the quiet, tropical islands of Okinawa, Japan. These regions act almost as geographic genetic cradles, where people routinely live abnormally long lives. So researchers descended on these gorgeous, isolated locales with their clipboards and testing kits, absolutely convinced, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that they were going to find a medical silver bullet buried somewhere in the geography, the water, or the soil. And you can probably guess exactly what they did next. They launched the ultimate laboratory hunt. They assumed extreme longevity just had to be quantifiable, right? Like it was a math equation just waiting to be solved by the right genius. So they started relentlessly measuring every single lifestyle metric they could get their hands on. They analyzed the locals' daily diets down to the specific gram of protein. They set up monitors to measure the local air quality for absolute purity. They meticulously calculated the exact physical labor output, tracking heart rates and daily caloric burn. They built this massive, exhausting mountain of strict laboratory data in full detail, fully expecting it to yield a clear, repeatable scientific formula for eternal youth. But human life is brilliantly, wonderfully unpredictable. Because when these brilliant researchers finally sat down to interview these record holders, the answers they got completely baffled them. Picture the scene. You've got a highly educated team of scientists interrogating one of the oldest men in the world, a literal medical marvel, asking for his ultimate secret. Did he cite the pristine coastal air quality? Did he talk about an optimized, calorie-restricted Mediterranean diet? No. Actually, he happily credited his incredibly long life to eating a greasy, heavily battered plate of traditional fish and chips every single Friday afternoon. You can't make this stuff up. Oh, and it gets even better. Another supercentenarian, when he was deeply pressed by medical professionals for his ultimate biological secret to defeating human mortality, simply shrugged his shoulders and said, "Pure luck, you either live long or short, and you can't do much about it." You really have to appreciate the profound irony here. Here's some of the most brilliant scientific minds in the world, searching endlessly for complex cellular data, and the actual men living the reality? They're just chuckling at them, hilariously contradicting all the strict laboratory expectations with a shrug and a smile. Think about our modern obsession with longevity compared to that mindset. On one hand, we have our current multi-billion-dollar anti-aging industry, right? We're talking strict vegan diets, complex biohacking routines, optimizing every single micronutrient, wearing sleep trackers, and taking handfuls of expensive daily supplements. But on the other side is the grounding, simple reality of these centurymen. It's weathered hands slowly harvesting fresh beans from the soil, or an old man laughing heartily at a massive, chaotic dinner table, surrounded by 3 generations of family, drinking a glass of homemade wine. No biohacking, no obsessive optimization, no glowing rings telling them how well they slept. Just living. So we really have to ask ourselves this pivotal question. If the secret isn't a strict optimized diet, and if we look past exactly what they put on their plates, what pattern actually emerges in how they live? Because I assure you, there absolutely is a pattern. It's just completely invisible to a microscope. The true secret, the common thread linking the oldest, most resilient men in human history, lies almost entirely in their psychological and social environment. It basically all comes down to 2 foundational pillars. Number 1, a fierce, unbreakable connection to a community. And number 2, a total absence of modern urgency. Let those words sink in for a second, because they run counter to literally everything we do today. An unbreakable connection to the people around them, and a total, complete absence of urgency. See, this is the true art of slowing down. And it is a very deliberate choice. These men do not rush through their mornings. They don't isolate themselves behind closed doors or sit all day in front of glowing screens. They belong to a tribe. Think about how profound that actually is. While the entire modern world spent the last 100 years relentlessly accelerating, building faster trains, faster cars, faster internet, and faster lives, these specific men made the active daily choice to resist that pull. They chose to slow down. They chose to stay firmly, deeply rooted right in their immediate surroundings. And that brings us to the philosophical heart of this entire explainer. Here's a thought for you. They didn't chase longevity. Longevity chased them because they gave it a reason to stay. Just let that hover in the air for a moment. It wasn't about frantically trying to outrun death. It wasn't about this lingering fear of the end. No, it was about building a daily life so incredibly rich, so full of deep connection and quiet purpose, that time itself seemed to want to linger with them just a little bit longer.
Which brings us to a massive, and honestly a slightly uncomfortable number, 2,700. I want you to really think about this specific number in full detail, 2,700 days. To put that into perspective, that is almost 7.5 years of a human lifespan. 7.5 years of waking up, living, and going to sleep. What does the average person in our modern, hyper-connected era spend 7.5 years of their limited, precious life doing? Any guesses?
Well, the data tells us that the average modern person spends 2,700 days of their life staring at a phone screen, 7.5 years, scrolling, often completely alone, in the dark. But the world's oldest men, the supercentenarians who completely defied the laws of biology, they spent those exact same 2,700 days looking into the eyes of the people they loved. I mean, wow. That is the haunting, gut-punch reality of our time. The stark, breathtaking contrast between our modern digital isolation and the deep, rich, tribal connection of the centurymen. The great mystery of the world's oldest man isn't simply how his heart physically managed to keep beating for 116 years. It's that he surrounded himself with a world that never gave his heart a reason to stop. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to take away from our explainer today. Is the secret to a long life just finding a life truly worth staying around for? Think about your own daily habits, think about your own connections, and your own sense of urgency. Maybe the greatest biohack of all is simply slowing down. Thank you so much for exploring this incredible mystery with me today. See you next time.